Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. This is absolutely huge news. A $10 billion lawsuit will almost certainly be settled with President Trump. This is right after, and hit subscribe to this channel right now. This is right after he won a $15 million defamation suit against ABC News and George Stephanopoulos. Hit subscribe to this channel, to my super chat. I cannot do this without you. If you want to talk about this or any topic, the inauguration in 2 days, via super chat, greatly appreciated. Wall Street Journal, CBS owner discusses settling Trump suit with merger review on tap. New York Post, CBS owner considers settling Trump suit. It's a $10 billion suit. The Verge, CBS considers caving on Trump censorship lawsuit. They edited an interview with Harris to make it seem like she was more eloquent and a better speaker, a better public speaker, perhaps, than she actually is. Hit subscribe. Let's get started, everybody, to my super chat. Thank you.
Mr. President, welcome.
Thank you very much.
I've spoken out about the unethical editing of the Kamala Harris interview by 60 Minutes.
Terrible.
But you go a step further and you say CBS should lose its license. Why?
Sure. Well, I've never seen anything like it. She gave a horrible, incompetent answer on a news program. It's not an entertainment program. They call it news. They say it's a #1 news program. And so she gives an answer that shows that she's dumb or incompetent or something wrong with her. It's so bad that the people at CBS say, we're not going to do a little editing, like the word "the," make it there, something. You understand? They take the whole ridiculous answer out, and it was a long answer, and replace it with a much shorter answer that she did having to do with a totally different subject, which also didn't make sense, but it wasn't as incompetent.
The head of
they
the
don't
FCC,
do that with me.
But the head of the FCC says we would never yank a license because a politician didn't like his or her coverage.
Well, this isn't a politician. This is nothing. Wait a minute. She gave an answer. They took the answer.
I said I've been critical of it.
Listen to this. They took, just for your audience, you know about it.
All right.
They took the answer out in its entirety, and they put a completely different answer in that makes her look like she's normal, okay, which is about the best you're going to do. And I said, I think it's the worst thing she's done. Now, what we're doing is we're going to subpoena their records because we want to see how much else did she do. And I can tell you, I've done 60 Minutes many times, and they do with me different. They take sentences out. In other words, I'm more honored by that. But I'll have a paragraph that is a great paragraph, and they'll make it less good by just taking things out. But that's different. That you can sort of say they want to make the program shorter. You know, they always say, well, we want to shorten it up. They take a great paragraph and, they make it okay. But with her, I never knew anyone would do this. They took the whole thing out and they put a whole new thing in. I've never seen anything. I think it's the biggest scandal I've ever seen for a broadcaster. In 60 Minutes, no, I think 60 Minutes, I think it should be taken off the air, frankly.
You posted this.
And by the way, 60 Minutes, they also, when I had an argument with Leslie Stone, now very famous, about the laptop, she said it was Russia, but I never got an apology.
You posted the following. Kamala should be investigated and forced off the campaign, and Joe Biden allowed to take back his rightful place. Investigated for what?
Well, it depends what you're talking about. Are you talking about 60 Minutes?
No, these are your words, so I'm asking you.
Let me tell you. They should look into it. Investigate. I'm investigated all the time. I'm the most investigated.
How did CBS come to the conclusion, ladies and gentlemen? Paul, thank you so very much. As always, to my super chat, thank you. I can't do this without you. How did CBS come to the conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, to deceptively edit an interview to help the Democratic candidate? Okay, and I think Trump is referring to Biden having won his primary. Okay, so Democrats allow individuals like Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden essentially to be completely railroaded in their political primaries. They don't even have functioning primaries, yet they pontificate about democracy. They just pick whomever they want, and Biden won every single state in his primary. So did they defraud the constituents of the Democratic Party? Did they lie to the American people saying that Biden won his primary? Well, of course, we knew from 2016 that Bernie Sanders was, of course, cheated, and they in a lawsuit, in DNC fraud lawsuit, they stated categorically they can pick and choose anyone they want, even after somebody won a primary or lost a primary. But this is the antithesis of democracy, but that's a whole other story. That corruption, Democratic voters are totally fine with. Okay, you had Hollywood celebrities kicking Biden off the campaign. But anyway, how did CBS come to the decision to deceptively edit Kamala Harris's video interview with CBS 60 Minutes to make it better for the Democrat? They edited the word salad that the new Democratic candidate was known for. So what Harris does oftentimes is she'll just meander off. It's like a more cognitive Joe Biden, whereas Biden, a more competent from a cognitive sense Joe Biden, whereas Biden meanders off into Never Never Land, and you don't really know what he's talking about. He just ventures off into a semantic wonderland. Harris, possibly because she doesn't really understand a specific topic or care about a specific subject, gives this long-winded word salad, and I'm verbose myself, but I have to be verbose because of the algorithm. But it's this long-winded word salad from Harris that when you actually sit down and read the transcript, okay, it doesn't really mean anything. It's just a way to circumvent actually addressing and answering a question honestly. But let's continue here. They're ready to settle. This is $10 billion. He just won $15 million. Now, New York made a big deal about Trump paying $500 million. Well, he's basically printing money with True Social and other things. I mean, if you started a sneaker line, shoes that sold out within a day, I mean, there's nothing Trump can do that doesn't make money. So, but anyway, let's continue with this, because they're going to settle because you had CBS, you have other ABC, they tried to help the Democrat against Trump. You can't do that in American politics anymore. Democrats are going to find out through defamation suits that you're no longer covered anymore to just lie about Trump. There's no legal cover to lie about Trump anymore.
Former President Trump today demanding that CBS News release a full transcript of Vice President Harris's interview with 60 Minutes, as the network defends airing two seemingly different answers from Harris responding to a question about Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Here are the two different answers, one that was played in a tease, and then one that was played in the 60 Minutes actual segment. So you can see, you're going to hear the same question twice. Watch.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
They do the exact opposite with Trump. With Trump, for 8 years, they've taken a snippet of what he says and primarily mainstream media, primarily dominated by liberal political ideology has taken Trump's words out of context, has completely ignored his statements. For example, Trump never said both sides. Trump never told you to ingest anything. They would use words like Trump suggested, he inferred, he suggested, he hinted at, he echoed this, and then they would put the 1930s and 1940s German leader. Okay, so there were so many deceptive, nefarious, diabolical semantic games played to deceive you about Trump. But with Harris, you saw it was the opposite. It was a more concise statement that the average American understood, whether you agree or not disagree with the foreign policy. They actually went out of their way to deceptively edit Harris's interview to help the Democratic Party. They go out of their way generally. Media has gone out of their way generally in the past 8 years to deceptively edit Trump to make you despise him, not to help him the way they helped Harris.
You see the difference there. So in a statement, CBS said in part, 60 Minutes gave an excerpt of our interview to Face the Nation that used a longer section of our answer than we used on 60 Minutes. Same question, same answer, but different portion of the response. Joining me now, Howie Kurtz, Media Buzz host. Howie, great to have you with us. Great show.
Thanks, Martha.
Yesterday, as always, on Media Buzz. Untangle what CBS is up to here.
This is a pathetic response by 60 Minutes after a week of silence. It basically says, yeah, we did it, so what? And, they talk about making Kamala Harris sound more succinct. In other words, making her look better by switching up the answers, as you just saw. You can't have a different part of an answer to the same question. It's blatantly unethical. And if someone on my staff did that, they'd be looking for a new job. The simplest thing would be to post the transcript. And if they thought that this was going to exonerate them, they would post a transcript. I think they're hiding something, and they're afraid to do that.
I think you're so right about that, because so often, Howie, 60 Minutes will say, oh, go to 60 Minutes Extra, and you can see the entire thing, but they never did that, did they?
Absolutely not, and they're refusing to do it, and it's impossible to imagine that if it helped their case, we wouldn't have seen this transcript days ago.
Yeah, and one of the issues with the vice president and the way she speaks is what people often refer to as word salad, right? So by extracting that part, you are also taking away from some of the editorial interest in her response, no?
Yeah, I mean, I'm almost speechless because 60 Minutes, 50 years was sort of the gold standard of news magazine reporting, and they've really created this mess for themselves, and this statement doesn't make it any better. Now, when I talked to former President Trump over the weekend, he says, he wants CBS off the air, he wants to yank the license. I don't necessarily agree with that. You're making an awful lot of people pay the price with nothing to do with 60 Minutes, but at the same time, CBS's damage control here is just making it more damaging.
They admitted to editing the video. They have to settle. They edited the video to help the Democratic Party and to hurt the Republican Party. Forget about Harris and Trump. These are political activists. Essentially, most journalists for the past 10 years, most have been political activists. Like, years back when people read my writing and, I was actually on the left, and I was published in the Hill, the Huffington Post, Salon, a whole bunch of places, okay? In 2015, 2016, 2017, I had very disingenuous, dishonest people trying to contact me for an interview. Okay, one of which wrote a hit piece on me for no reason at all other than I wasn't going to vote for Clinton. And at that time, I was just going to vote for Bernie Sanders no matter what, which was also a foolish thing. I mean, not voting for Clinton, and I shouldn't have voted for Bernie. I should have simply voted for Donald Trump. But I didn't realize that I was part of a very, very bizarre, warped political ideology. So when I realized that President Trump had a great economy, record low poverty, record highs in household median income, these are all facts backed by CNN and the New York Times and others. We had a wonderful economy. We had an anti-war foreign policy. I lost friends. I had Twitter at the time. People, did these like really stupid videos trying to disparage me. So it's like you leave that cult and then you just get this, vitriol and venom. But I didn't care. I'm not born to, give allegiance to any political party. I want what's best for the United States of America and for my family, myself, for the world. What's best for the United States of America is obviously Trump. If you care about foreign policy and if you care about economic policy, how you go from Bernie Sanders to Trump, I wrote in the Federalist. So the Federalist also is published a number of times. Type in H.A. Goodman Federalist. You'll see my article. If you care about an anti-war foreign policy, you must vote Trump. That's the direct line between Bernie Sanders and Trump. There are people who didn't. I have people who knew me that said, oh, you're doing it for money. It's like, well, no, you make less money. At that point, you made a lot less money. You made a lot less money going from the left to supporting President Trump. Okay. It wasn't lucrative. Selling Make America Great Again hats wasn't exactly lucrative when the most apoplectic and hysterical political side was accusing Trump of being a Kremlin operative and everything else they accused Trump of. But the point is, this has been a concerted effort by quote-unquote journalists, by people who essentially were political activists masquerading as journalists. And I mean, there's a new sheriff in town. It ain't happening anymore. You can't lie about Trump and expect not to pay millions of dollars anymore. It's just not happening. It's not lucrative anymore to lie about Trump.
Yeah, indeed. And I would encourage everybody to tune in and listen to his answer on the enemy within as well, which I thought was very interesting.
Senior Republican Commissioner on the Federal Communications Commission, Brendan Carr, accusing Facebook in an X post over the weekend of censoring information again. The fact that Vice President Kamala Harris has failed to connect even one person to the internet, despite leading the administration's $42 billion internet infrastructure plan for over 1,000 days. Facebook labeled this post as, quote, false information from an FCC commissioner. Okay, they fact-checked it with the Biden-Harris administration. So then they determine it's false. That label has since been removed. And in a statement to Fox Business, Meta says this, quote, publishes clear rating guidelines for third-party fact-checkers who independently review.
Really quickly, there was no such thing as third-party fact-checking the past 10 years. There was no such thing as the 90,000 lies told by Trump with 4.65 Pinocchios, 4.7589 Pinocchios given. This was all nonsense. A fact check, and I have been telling people for about 7 years on this channel, a fact check is, for example, the New York Yankees won the 1955 World Series. Is that right or wrong? Let's fact check it. Wrong. Fact check. The Brooklyn Dodgers won the 1955 World Series. End of story. That's it. Not 7.67895 Pinocchios. Not a meter. This is somewhat partially half true, with a tinge of somewhat maybe at sometimes true. This is. A fact check is a quick, concise, succinct statement, and that's it. This was a rebuttal. The fact checking that Democrats utilized were liberal rebuttals. They were a counter argument. They were rebuttals. They were another argument. They were an effort to give you another vantage point. So when you debate somebody you can say, well, I'm constantly fact-checking you, or I'm trying to refute your viewpoint of the truth. Okay, your argument, I should say. So, and then they go back and say, why does Trump dislike fact-checking? It's like, well, because you're not fact-checking. You're simply giving a 10,000-word rebuttal, where you actually admit most of what Trump said, or a great deal of what Trump said is true, but it's taken out of context, and well, that's called a rebuttal. And if Trump says something from the vantage point of hyperbolic, and there's, for example, if he says, well, this is the greatest economy ever, it's not an outright lie when he's talking about really good economic numbers, record low poverty, record highs in household median income, hundreds of thousands of new manufacturing jobs, simply saying the economy in the 50s was better. False. Fact check. Trump was telling lies. That's why he won the popular vote. Democrats routinely tell blatant, overt lies, but they don't get fact-checked in the same manner. For example, Biden stating endlessly for 3 weeks that he would stay in the presidential contest. Did he commit a felony? He made speeches where he told blatant lies. Harris removed him within 3 weeks. Or Democrats removed him for Harris. But is there a special counsel gearing up to indict him on that lie? Well, they did that with Trump. And that wasn't even a lie. He has every right, Trump, to give a speech to say that he doesn't trust the Democratic Party. End of story. And if people commit crimes that have nothing to do with his speech, that's not his fault. But anyway, let's continue.
And rate content. But in this instance, the rating fell outside of those guidelines, and so we have removed it. That means busted. Joining me now is the man himself, Commissioner Brendan Carr. Commissioner, great to see you. Thank you so much for being here. I want you to walk us through what happened here, because you also have an op-ed in the Journal where you talk about the $42 billion fail of Kamala Harris, the internet infrastructure plan that Harris agreed to lead, and how the Biden-Harris administration recently confirmed that those construction projects will not even begin until next year at the earliest, and in many cases, not until 2026. You write this: instead of focusing on delivering broadband to unserved areas, the administration has used the program to advance a wish list of political goals. Commissioner Carr, tell
Vistaprint prints everything to get your
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. Here is the information about Vice President Harris's record that both Facebook and the administration itself don't want the American people to know. In 2021, Vice President Harris agreed to lead the administration's signature $42 billion plan to connect millions of Americans to the internet. Back then, Vice President Harris said we can get the job done today. Well, flash forward to today, it's been now 1,072 days since she took the helm of this program. And as you noted, not one single American has been connected to the internet. Not even a single shovel's worth of dirt has been turned. And calling that out resulted in a now false and debunked fact check. But that's the information that the American people should be having access to right now.
So where's the money? What did they use the money for? Let me guess. They used the money for illegals.
Most of the money is still sitting there. They spent some of it hiring government workers to plan to eventually connect people. So the good news is we can still course correct here. But the problem is, as you noted, they've been pursuing progressive policy goals over the last 1,000 days. So they've adopted implementing regulations that have DEI requirements, a climate change agenda. One state broadband official that's been dealing with the Biden-Harris administration on this says that it has been a chaotic implementation environment, dysfunction, delay. Politico says it's sort of frustration and finger pointing at this point. So it's a real microcosm for some of the concerns that people have.
And this is the problem politically and in terms of national security, for example, with the Democratic Party. If there's a budget and the budget is for defense, or the budget is for upgrading, domestic internet usage. Okay. The way Trump or Republicans would engage in implementing the budget is simply, okay, what is the best allocation of funds to get things done? End of story. Not some warped conservative ideology where you have to get a certain outcome. That's it. But Democrats, and there are laws, by the way, protecting people from discrimination. Every American is protected, thank God, by laws. A number of laws protecting them from discrimination. I despise any type of discrimination or bigotry. We have laws in the books for years and years, thank God. But the way Democrats roll is, if it's defense, if it's, a big internet, plan that they're talking about now, how can they address a fringe, far left-leaning political ideology in addition to the overall objective of whatever, defense, or in this case, domestic internet availability? It's like there's always some kind of additional concern in many cases that overshadows the primary objective, because Democrats have their eyes solely upon political ideology and then results. Political ideology first, then results. Whereas Trump is like, okay, I just want results. That's why he won. That's one of the reasons he won.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I said that half facetiously, given the fact that they're using money in FEMA for illegals, according to Karine Jean-Pierre 2 years ago. Look, the conservative watchdog Center for American Rights filed a formal complaint with the FCC, accusing CBS News of distortion for airing that edited answer from Vice President Harris's 60 Minutes interview. Let's talk about this for a second, because I want to show the unedited video that was used to promote the interview, followed by the edited version, which actually aired on 60 Minutes. Watch.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of...
This is one of the reasons that Harris lost. Harris never answered a question without at least 5-6 paragraphs of these endless, of this endless meandering off into this verbose explanation here and there. And it's like, why don't you just give a 1 or 2 or 3 word sentence answering the question? Trump does that. Trump pretty much answers the question within the first 10, 15 seconds.
Movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We're not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
Wow, that is infuriating.
How much better is the second answer? The second answer is concise, succinct, and actually it's not, forget about the merits of what she's saying, not getting into that. But it's an answer that everybody can understand. Harris routinely had to think while speaking to try to circumvent an answer. Because this is not, I say this with all due respect, there's no vitriol. I saw this my entire life when I was on the left and I was a lifelong liberal Democrat. Democrats generally don't believe most of their political ideology. That's why they're constantly saying, this isn't really happening. No, that's not happening. Oh, that's not really taking place. Oh, well, because if what conservatives were saying is actually taking place, which almost always is taking place, the average Democrat having to confront the reality of their policies and ideology would be, completely, indignant and, would oppose that outcome. So they're constantly saying that's not really happening. No, this is not. That's not the truth. Why don't you own it? Like, for example, when they, AOC, Green New Deal, that she wanted to pack the courts. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, they want a Medicare for all, single payer. Did they even talk about any of that stuff? They don't talk about any of that. They don't believe in it. Maybe there's a couple of people within, like a couple of politicians who kind of do believe in it, like Bernie Sanders, but they know very well. They know very well the second they're close to implementing it, 2016 will take place. And for example, Bernie Sanders was cheated, and they're okay with it. Democrats they're just fine with their core ideology or their cherished policy objectives being completely ignored by the power structure of the Democratic Party. That's actually politics to them. Not so with Trump. Trump starts a never-ending war. I will regret ever voting for President Trump. But he won't. That's not who he is. That's who Liz Cheney, that's who Biden, that's who Kerry, and they all voted for the same thing. That's who Bush, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Clinton, that's who they are. You know, you grew up with these long-haired, 1960s hippie liberal Democrats who opposed military conflict. Those same people are now pro-endless military conflict. How did that happen? Well, because they don't truly believe in their ideology. That's the truth.
Infuriating, Commissioner. Really, when you look at those completely different answers, it's clear that the second answer was actually not even part of the first answer. I mean, they may have actually taken the second answer from a different question and just inserted it in there. What do you want the FCC to do here in terms of CBS's local New York station, WCBS?
Yeah, my SEC colleague, Republican Commissioner Symington, has been very active on this. What he's pointed out is the news distortion rule is a very, very narrow rule at the FCC. In almost every case, it doesn't apply because it could get into sort of editorial decisions that are protected by the First Amendment. But what he said is that CBS should release the transcript. And the reason why this complaint is not frivolous is because the rules say, for instance, the example we've given is if you take an answer to a question that is a yes, and you replace the answer of no from a different question, that's something that would potentially fall within the news distortion rule. My position is I agree with Catherine Herridge. She was a former CBS reporter. She has said that she thinks, just as a matter of journalistic practice, CBS should release the transcript. And I think that's right. I don't think this needs to be a federal case because I think CBS should release it, and then that would.
Who ever heard of a televised interview where the transcript wasn't released? That happens every single time since since you had the internet, and I mean for the past 20 plus years, let's say 24 years ago, the internet people started going online. Let's say it was commonplace 24 years ago. Okay. If there was an interview, you could always find a transcript. Who on earth ever heard of a transcript being hidden? Why on earth would you hide the transcript? You should be proud of the transcript. Don't you want America to know exactly what Kamala Harris thinks about foreign policy? Apparently not.
Would inoculate entirely CBS from that FCC complaint.
So they haven't released it. They're staying firm on that. Why not? I mean,
thank you for the kind words, everybody. Thank you.
Why not just put this issue to bed by releasing the transcripts so that everybody could know where that second answer came from?
Well, that's exactly what Catherine Herridge said. In fact, she walked through a timeline that showed to be consistent with CBS precedent to do this. I think she noted that she had an interview with President Trump back in 2020 that they ultimately released the full unedited transcript. And so I think she's right, just as a matter of journalistic practice and newsworthiness, that people want to see this. In fact, I know people are reaching out to their local affiliates right now, asking them if they would release that transcript.
So, I mean, what's going on? Is there politics driving things as well here? I mean, we know the FBI has completely become politicized, the CIA politicized, even the DOJ potentially with their, vows to end voter ID. What's going on at the FCC? I mean, the FCC is allowing a nonprofit group funded by George Soros to take control of radio giant Audacy after the company went bankrupt. Odyssey, weeks before the presidential election. How is he able to take over all of these radio stations right before the election? The deal effectively gives the Soros family control.
Radio and liberal politics, left-leaning politics don't work out for some reason. I don't exactly know what it is. Cable? Sure. I mean, you've had MSNBC and CNN, or like their viewership has plummeted. But, you know, it worked. You could deceptively edit Trump's speech, and you can get a lot of people, you know, to try to convince, viewers that Trump is is Satan. But that works a lot better on cable. It doesn't work on radio, and I don't know why. Your guess is as good as mine. I don't know. Maybe it's very difficult to explain why on a state level, for example, single payer or healthcare doesn't work. I mean, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. There's no equivalent of Rush Limbaugh, for example. There's no liberal equivalent on the radio of Rush Limbaugh or even Sean Hannity. There's no liberal or progressive equivalent of Joe Rogan. There really isn't. Why? Because if you disagree with, if your ideology or your viewpoints or your philosophy or your ideas conflict with the Washington Post, New York Times, CNN, MSNBC, you're not going to be viewed as a left-leaning pundit anymore.
Of 200 radio stations plus, more than 200.
If you've been injured in a recent car.
This is really concerning. This decision by the commission is unprecedented. We've never, at the agency level, adopted a fast track to approve this. We have rules on the books that would have required this Soros-backed entity to go through a national security review before obtaining these licenses. That would have taken 3 to 6 months.
This all changes, by the way, within a year with Trump's new administration. Well, probably within months.
But for the first time ever, the commission created a special Soros shortcut. And it's concerning because I think that your last name should not determine how the government treats you. But a lot of American people have been looking at the government over the last couple of years, and they see weaponization. If your last name is Musk or another last name, you get the book thrown at you for no reason at all in many cases. If your last name is Soros, you get streamlined treatment where you get to skip the normal review process. And I think that's the fundamental problem that so many people are concerned about.
Well, that's right. And I'm glad you brought up Musk, because it seems like Elon Musk gets much different treatment than other electric car makers. I mean, he's the leading electric vehicle maker, and yet he's not getting the same subsidies that the others get with their unions. And then remember that new speech from the Democrat FCC chair when she floated the word monopoly in context of Starlink.
Yeah, this is concerning. I mean, so look, you go back to the Trump era, we awarded over $800 million to Starlink to connect hundreds of thousands of Americans, including locations that were in western North Carolina that ended up being hit by Helene. And the FCC back then said, well, Starlink's not really reliable high-speed internet. Well, flash forward to today. Now the private sector and FEMA are rushing Starlink kits into that exact same part of western North Carolina, and FEMA saying it's reliable, high-speed internet. And so it's this regulatory lawfare has consequences. The New York Times just did a graphic that showed the cavalcade of administrative agencies and law enforcement bodies that are taking actions on Elon Musk that seem very disproportionate and seem like they can only be explained by politics.
So there's a new sheriff in town. I mean, they gave their best shot at trying to ruin Trump and Musk and others. But see, the difference now is that Democrats very likely broke the law with classified data, leaking classified data. Trump never broke the law as a president with the power to declassify. End of story. And then you have presidential immunity. If you're not the president of the United States of America, you don't have the power to declassify the amount of classified data Trump had the power to declassify, which is almost all data. And that's been backed by the Supreme Court. These are all facts. So it's like, Biden, Clinton, they did not have the power to declassify. Trump did. End of story. Then you have senators, then you have others leaking classified data over the years to try to harm Trump politically. I mean, that's just one way they'll probably indict people.
Yes, critics are calling out CBS News for several editorial missteps. The big one, a recent decision to edit a response from Vice President Harris, which seemingly went in her favor. The media outlet now facing calls to release an unedited copy of the entire interview with Harris. Joe Concha's Fox News contributor joins us now to talk about this. So what we want to do here is we want to play, it's the same question where Bill Whitaker asks about whether or not she would do anything different.
Where we
answers were completely different in the promo clip from what actually aired on the 60 Minutes program that evening. I don't understand. Why do you put out one answer as a teaser for everybody to see and then change it for the broadcast?
Because the bigotry exists within the Democratic Party far more than the Republican Party. Okay, the actual bigotry exists within the Democratic Party. The editors did not want Americans to hear Harris's full answer. Why? Why? If you're more qualified than Biden, and Democrats keep saying, hey, you know what? You have to listen to people of all backgrounds. Why did you prevent America from listening to Harris's full statement? Could it be bigotry? Could it be prejudice? Were these good liberals at this news organization frightened that Americans, wouldn't understand, Harris explaining exactly what she said when she said it? Well, I don't see a problem with that at all. I mean, I see a problem with what they did editing. I don't see a problem. Forget about the merits of her answer. If she wants to explain herself in an endless word salad, what's the problem? Just listen to it. I've had the mantra for listen to, believe this, and listen to everybody. And then why didn't you listen to Harris? Why did you then deny the American public her exact words? Was there prejudice involved? But see, again, it's like they don't even believe their ideology.
Well, the first answer, as we saw, John, that was all bubbles and no bath, right? Like, I could not decipher exactly what she was saying. So when the promotional clip went out, the campaign and Kamala Harris herself was getting a lot of backlash for it, and you hear those two words put together again, word salad. So CBS, seeing the backlash, then decided that when they broadcast that night, and remember, this is still a top 10 show, CBS, it's on after NFL football, they have a large audience, they put the answer out there that put her in the best light. So it's very simple now at this point. If you're CBS News, John, release the entire interview on cbsnews.com, infinite space there. Let everyone see it from start to finish without any edits or jump cuts. Release the transcript while you're at it. But CBS only released the transcript of the edited portion of the interview. Why is that, CBS? The same news division that screams about the importance of transparency is being anything but transparent here. And this is journalistic malfeasance. And now the story, John, is far less about Kamala Harris's actual answer after the edit and much more about 60 Minutes and their ethics or lack thereof. They've become the story. So this justifies Trump's decision not to do this interview, because if they edited Kamala Harris to make her sound better, what would they have done to the former president after editing his interview? The exact opposite, of course. There was no upside going there.
Trump is calling this the biggest scandal in broadcast history. I'm not sure it amounts to that, but it certainly is eyebrow-raising. Then there's this. It's a CBS morning show controversy. Their anchor, Tony DeCoppel, who's a very good journalist, was interviewing author Ta-Nehisi Coates, who was very critical of Israel in a new book. DeCoppel, as any journalist would, did a little bit of pushback against Coates. Listen to this.
In the past, that Israel does not have Paramount Global, that's the parent company of CBS, John, Sherry Redstone. She has public.
So, not to get too lost in what took place there, but when you push back or oppose a prevalent and popular political ideology within the Democratic or within liberal circles, that's also a sacred cow. There, Democrats and wonderful liberals and progressives and communists and socialists have so many wonderful sacred cows. And if you dare to push back and actually use logic and reason and have them defend their vantage point, which oftentimes is hyperbolic and ignores context and all of that, then, oh my God, it's a big problem. So that's what happened there. But anyway, let's continue here.
Listen to this controversy here. Former CBS staffers are reportedly
something. This is not a thing that we do in the media. Yes, you may not always air the full answer to a question, but you never, ever put the answer to question B with question A. So why would the esteemed journalists at the paragon of virtue, 60 Minutes, think they could get away with such a thing?
I keep reading so-called media reporters defending this, like, who've never worked, by the way, ever in an actual newsroom, say, oh, this is very common to do this. No. Why, if you're CBS News, would you promote 60 Minutes with a clip of Kamala Harris saying one thing and then during the interview not play that clip and air something completely different? Oh, that's right. The clip you promoted made her look horrible, as what usually happens when she's outside of a teleprompter. And then the clip that you actually played was something that made her sound a bit more competent, I guess. Either way, it's very simple, Todd, if you're CBS News. Release the entire interview on CBS News.
Why do you think that Harris never did interviews up until the last moment? Why do you think that Biden never did press conferences, barely campaigned 4 years ago, and, was forced out after one debate? The Democratic Party runs on public relations and media support. They don't run on the substance of their ideology because they don't really know their ideology is all over the place. Like I said, if it's defense or if it's like any topic, there are other issues that they have to address when they're addressing defense. When they're addressing, like you heard earlier, Harris's internet project, domestic internet availability. So it's not just results driven, it's ideological. They have to check the ideological box before they then look at, okay, how do we get the best results? But oftentimes it can't work that way. You can't do two things or three things at once. You have to focus all your efforts on achieving a singular goal, not a singular goal that coincides with your warped fringe political ideology. And by the way, it's like Democrats are so focused on protecting individuals from discrimination. We have laws, thank God, protecting people from discrimination. These laws are in the books. State and federal laws exist. And there are lawsuits all the time. You don't need the Democratic Party to protect you from a bigotry or discrimination. You could sue anytime you want if somebody is actually engaging, not hiring you. There's already laws protecting you. So it's like a racket that Democrats play all the time. That ties into the fact they don't want. Why didn't they want Biden in 20 debates? He's the quote unquote leader of the free world. Why didn't they want a president, the most popular president of all time, constantly debating Trump? Because he looked like a deer in the headlights, and everyone saw this 4 years ago, which is exactly why Trump performed that speech and many speeches, not espousing the viewpoint that he doesn't trust the Democratic Party. He thinks that he was railroaded. He didn't think that things were above board or fair or just. And he didn't think things were fair and square. And oh my God, the biggest lie. One of the biggest lies ever told. What's that? Biden, less than 4 years ago, had a debate where people saw him? No. Remove him quick. It's like everyone knows. Hollywood wouldn't have a leading actress or a leading man, in a movie. And then, remove that person immediately after the first screening of the movie. It just wouldn't work that way. But that's how Democrats roll.
CBS.com. Let everyone see it from start to finish without any edits, any jump cuts, and while you're at it, release the transcript as well. But CBS, they only released the transcript of the edited portion of the video. Why is that, CBS? We don't know, because Fox News has reached out to CBS News to say, why aren't you releasing the whole interview? And they won't even respond. This is the same news division that screams about the importance of transparency, and they're being anything but transparent here. I mean, this is journalistic malfeasance. And now the story is far less about Kamala's actual answer after the edit and much more about 60 Minutes and their ethics or lack thereof. And this completely justifies Donald Trump's decision to not do this interview on CBS, because they would have edited him the exact opposite way. They would have taken him and put him in the worst light, because that's CBS News these days. It's the exact opposite of what it was under Edward R. Murrow and Walter Cronkite. That is certainly for sure.
Well, both things that she said may have been part of the same answer.
Could you imagine Walter Cronkite reporting on the Steele dossier? And now, ladies and gentlemen, there have been reports that a leading Republican went to the bathroom in a Moscow hotel room, commonly known as a certain type of shower. And there were also reports that his attorney met with spies from the Kremlin as he was, as people were going to the bathroom on him in a Moscow hotel room. Then, like months later, there are reports, ladies and gentlemen, that the Steele dossier that said that Trump was in a hotel room enjoying certain practices was actually purchased by Hillary Clinton and the DNC. This is Walter Cronkite. But could you imagine? It would never happen. Only in this era of modern American politics would that be okay.
Responding to the claim that they deceptively edited Kamala Harris' 60 Minutes interview that aired on October 7th. In a statement, CBS News writing, quote, former President Donald Trump is accusing 60 Minutes of deceitful editing of our October 7 interview with.
This is false. We didn't deceitfully edit anything. We edited the interview with only the highest moral standards on our mind. To accuse us of deceitfully editing anything, when in reality we edited the video to help Americans make a better choice. That's egregious.
Vice President Kamala Harris. That is false. 60 Minutes gave an excerpt of our interview to Face the Nation that used a longer section of her answer than that 60 Minutes one. Same question, same answer, but a different portion of the response. But many are still calling on CBS to release the full transcript of that interview.
Joe Concha is a Fox News contributor, and he joins us now. Joe, good morning to you. So this is a big development here, 2 weeks after Kamala Harris sat down with 60 Minutes. The network is finally responding to these allegations that they edited her interview to make her look better. CBS is now saying that's not true. They edited the interview for time. So what's your reaction to that?
We edited the interview for time? How much videotape can you spend on this? How much film? Do you know how much film a CBS stores? Oh, that's right. Everything's digital. It was time. We had lunch. Checks in the mail. It was about time. Who believes this nonsense?
Wow, it took 14 days to put out that statement, huh, Carly? Todd, thanks for having me, by the way. This statement 60 Minutes issued is absolutely meaningless. The only resolution here is for the program to release the full transcript, release the hounds, release the interview in its entirety from start to finish. But the network won't do that. You know why they won't do that? Two reasons. One, the people that run that network want Kamala Harris to win and Donald Trump to lose. This ain't about journalism. It's about activism. And two, they know.
That's the issue. By the way, the journalist interviewing Harris is fantastic.
By releasing the transcript or the unedited video, it will likely show that on multiple occasions, this interview cut the guts out of the various word salad the vice president again served up. Her campaign now is only reduced to talking about Trump. It's not working. They're not giving people a compelling reason to vote for her. It's another reason why Donald Trump is not only winning this election as it's
Democratic candidate, what do you think about foreign policy? Many things that would have happened didn't happen because of the work that we pursued and the avenues that we traveled to try to circumvent endless vitriol and an unrealistic approach that eventually was opted out of with a new and better reality.
It stands right now, but perhaps is headed towards an electoral landslide. The media and shows like 60 Minutes, try as they might, can't save Kamala Harris right now. Not only is Trump outworking her, he is outmaneuvering her. I mean, look at Sunday. Works at a McDonald's. That was a masterstroke in retail politics. Then he does a 1-hour town hall in Lancaster. It was more than an hour, actually. Then he went to a Jets-Steelers game in Pittsburgh and was met with thunderous USA, USA chants. This is Donald Trump's race to lose, no question. And again, that McDonald's move... All I know is you have to ask the question, did she really work there? Because, again, we have no proof of that. But don't worry, 60 Minutes won't pursue it. That we know.
Yeah, Trump is saying that she did not.
There is zero investigative journalism, zero when it comes to anything Democrats say or do.
Work there. But back to the 60 Minutes thing, look, they're not denying it in that statement. What they're doing is normalizing it. And this is what the media wants. They want to normalize these things with regard to the candidate that they love, in this case, Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris is a candidate because Joe Biden isn't. A new book claims Nancy Pelosi was upset being the key figure to oust Biden as the Democratic nominee. In an excerpt from Vanity Fair, the author of this book writes, quote, after Biden underperformed with Stephanopoulos, Pelosi expected that Bill Clinton, Barack Obama, and the Democratic leadership on Capitol Hill would stage an intervention. But the men were MIA. One insider told me she wasn't happy that the only bloody fingerprints on the knife were hers.
I mean, there were a whole lot of people who ousted Biden. Hollywood celebrities. George Clooney wrote an op-ed, I believe. I mean, it was a complete, catastrophe for Democrats. Nobody trusts the media anymore. Nobody trusts D.C. anymore. So it's like the two centers of power, of influence. Nobody trusts Hollywood. The three centers of power of influence the Democrats had, virtual monopoly on. Nobody really cares anymore. Nobody cares about the latest apoplectic headline about Trump. And by the way, these headlines are toned down. The yellow journalism has reached a point where you have ABC News and George Stephanopoulos paying a defamation suit that was monumental. That was a precedent that Trump can utilize now. CBS, $10 billion. $10 billion. It is stated. You can read the article right here. See, 15 million, where's the 10 billion? CBS considers caving on Trump's censorship lawsuit. Okay, hold on one second. $10 billion. $10 billion. A law professor, CBS News called Donald Trump's $10 billion lawsuit over the editing of 60 Minutes. So, and they're thinking of settling. Well, why not? There's a merger going on. And they don't want it to get messed up with the typical lies told about Trump. Anyway, hit subscribe to this channel, ladies and gentlemen. This is huge. This $10 billion lawsuit, in addition, I mean, the biggest, most, important victory recently for Trump was the ABC News and George Stephanopoulos defamation victory. Once you have this, CBS News paying, every single the next major story about Trump, the yellow journalism, the disingenuous, deceitful headlines will be toned down. And you're going to have, that's also how Democrats gained popularity and momentum. So, I mean, I don't know. Who do Democrats have in 28? AOC? I pray to God AOC is the nominee. I pray to God. Hit subscribe, everyone. See you tomorrow. God bless you all. Thank you, everybody. Paul, everybody here, thank you so very, very, very much. To my Super Chat Pilgrim, everyone here, guitar lessons, thank you so much. Have a great evening. Hey, Monday. Who remembers the 80s supercar, you know, a super truck, Monday. Monday's going to be a day, a very, for the country, in terms of a sea change in American politics forever, a monumental day. We'll never go back to the past 10 years of liberal politics again. Biden did to the Democratic Party what Bush and Cheney and Rumsfeld did to the Republican Party. And there's a new era, thank God willing, a better, less militant era with more freedom and a better economy under Trump and hopefully Vance in 28. Hit subscribe, everybody. God bless America. God bless you. God bless President Trump. I thank God he survived. And I mean, that poor firefighter who did not survive, such a tragedy and so terrible. And you wonder why there's no investigative journalism there. But anyway, he was a second away. We were a split second away from 4 years of Harris and Democrats. You know, so that's food for thought. Hit subscribe, everybody. Actually, I think that Biden was still, we would have had 4 years of Biden. Or maybe whatever, they would have switched midstream. Anyway, see you tomorrow and be here Monday all day. We will do live streams on the inaugural